Now, one thing about lies, they will catch up with you. How does it reflect an ATM number when it's a teller inside the branch? Who wants to question Muzi on proceedings in Judge Maumeda's court? Come on now, Baloyi, your desperation is ridiculous. And in my mind, I was like, next witness, let it be Absalom Zungu. You fetch the sauce. You fetch the sauce.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Things felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull an 10. Like Daddy, all of the Barbies is pretty. Damn, all of the Barbies is bad.
Oh, what a week it has been in the Senzo Meyiwa trial. Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Nov ABSOLOM, also known as Kwazi Bear on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back, darling. Oh, it's been a long week. It's been a long week. It's been an exciting week. As you know, every week I bring you proceedings in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and I'm here to do exactly that. Before we get into this week's proceedings, please do like this video, like immediately. Like, please can you like this video so that YouTube does recommend it to other users so that other people are aware of what is going on in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, right? Please do that for me, and also please do comment with your thoughts on this week's proceedings and what you think of the state's case so far. I would love to know. You know I do engage with your comments down below. And also the last one, please do super thanks the channel. This is how I know that you guys really appreciate the efforts in me bringing you these videos every week without fail. So please do super thanks the channel to show your appreciation. Without wasting too much of your time, let us get into the proceedings of the week. So as you know, on Monday, we were awaiting the ruling from Judge Rata Mokgotleng in regards to the state's application to question accused number 1 on the confessions of accused number 2. So the judge does emphasize that this is a ruling and not a judgment, and he does actually go through some cases where he says that, you know, we dealt with the admissibility of the confessions in a trial within a trial, and right now we're dealing with this issue of the cross-examination of accused number 1 using accused number 2 statements. He does quote several cases that then prompted him to come to the decision that he made, which is to not allow the state to cross-examine accused number 1 on accused number 2 statement. Now guys, last week I already said I didn't think that it was fair that the state would do this, and one of the things that Judge Rata pointed out is the fact that we haven't quite determined what it is we're dealing with here. In the trial within a trial, we said we were dealing with confessions, and hence why the decision he made in the trial within a trial to say that these were admissible. But now the state wants to change and say they are executive statements, which then would render the whole trial within a trial useless, because we then had a whole trial within a trial to determine the admissibility of confessions, not executive statements. So that was the ruling by Judge Rata Mokgotleng, a win for the defense. At this point, it just proved that the state really had nothing but these confessions when it comes to the evidence that they have against the accused, because Baloyi then goes back into the bank records. Remember, we had completed the cross-examination on the bank records last week. Now he says he's going back to the bank records and he goes through the transactions again. Now Baloyi does point out that during the period of 2014 to about 2015, there were no transactions on Muzi Sibiya's account, and Muzi Sibiya does emphasize that yes, obviously there will not be any transactions, especially since I did say that I was not working during this period, so I wasn't receiving any money in particularly the account, the Standard Bank account. So he says even now, if you can go to my bank records, you can see that I have accounts, but they're not active because I'm not actively depositing money into these accounts. Now, one of the transactions that Muzi emphasizes is the transaction of 50,000 that was deposited into his account. He says that this amount was a transaction that he had received from his previous employers, and basically there is nothing illegal about anything that is appearing in his bank statements. All the money that is received is legit. It's from work, it's from SARS, it's legit, and all the transactions that are happening in that account, nothing is suspicious. Now, one of the most awkward things that I found about the transactions that Advocate Baloyi went through with Muzi Sibiya is a particular transaction which was a deposit that was made in the bank. Now, I'm speaking from experience, having worked for Standard Bank. The transactions that you do inside the branch cannot have an ATM number. Now, what was suspicious to me about the transaction that Baloyi was reading out is that Musi Sibiya had done a withdrawal inside the branch, and he even says that particular withdrawal, I can affirm that it was me who made that withdrawal because my withdrawal limit was 5,000 rand, and any amount that was above 5,000 rand would be required to be withdrawn inside by the account holder. Now, I can also attest to this as an ex-employee of Standard Bank. Before I would say about 2017, because I left the bank in 2017. Just before I left the bank, the withdrawal limit on all Standard Bank cards was 5,000 rand. They have since increased the limit to 10,000 rand. However, even when you do withdraw the 10,000, you need to withdraw it in bits and drabs, because the 10,000 rand never used to fit in the slot where the money comes out. So when Musi Sibiya says his limit was 5,000 rand and the withdrawal of 7,000 was definitely made inside the branch, I absolutely agree with that statement. But what confuses me is that on the transaction, it's reflecting an ATM number. How does it reflect an ATM number when it's a teller inside the branch? Baloyi needs to explain that bit to us. Baloyi goes back to the issue of Musi Sibiya booking his learner's license in Johannesburg and questions, out of all the places that are in KZN, why did he specifically come to Joburg to book his learners? Musi Sibiya's response to this is that it's just the same as the CVs. There are so many companies in KZN that hire, but some people just prefer to come to Joburg to look for employment. So the same applies with the driver's license. And to be quite honest, I think Musi missed this, but some people go to different areas to apply for their learners and license because the dates are sooner. So basically in certain areas, because eMahlabathini is like homelands and there's not so much traction there, you could find that the dates are further apart to get a date for your learner's license, whereas in Joburg, because it's so busy, you get dates sooner for your learner's license. That could have been one of the excuses that Musi used in order for him to use the Joburg branches as opposed to KZN. There was a particular statement that Advocate Baloyi referred to that was said to be done by Simphiwe Buthelezi, and when Baloyi raised the issue of this particular statement, he said that the statement says that Simphiwe Buthelezi witnessed an argument between Musi Sibiya and his girlfriend back in June of 2020. Now, Mnisi did question about the dates and say, please can you repeat the dates because I didn't hear the dates. And when Mnisi requested the date to be repeated, the judge then referred to something about Mahlabathini and Brakpan, which was not what Mnisi was asking. And I also got a bit confused at this moment because Musi Sibiya was arrested in May of 2020. How was this Buthelezi guy saying that he overheard an argument with Musi and his girlfriend in June of 2020? This was later corrected during the re-examination of Mnisi to say the date was actually January of 2020 and not June. Desperation of the state got even worse when he tried to go into the video of Ulongwe Twala and try to get Musi Sibiya to comment on how Longwe Twala was walking in the video. Musi's response to this is that I don't even know this Longwe Twala. I don't know how he walks under normal circumstances. I wouldn't know how he walks when he's shot. I don't know anyone who has been shot and I've seen walking, so I can't comment on how Ulongwe Twala was walking during this time. Now, when I realized that the state has hit rock bottom is when Advocate Baloyi tried to refer Musi Sibiya to proceedings in the sittings with Judge Maumela. And I was like, how is he referring to sittings in Judge Maumela's court when that was ruled to be null and void? We started de novo. Everything that was said in this case was minused, was subtracted from the equation. Now Baloyi comes back and he wants to question Musi on proceedings in Judge Maumela's court. Come on now, Baloyi, your desperation is ridiculous. Rato's question to Baloyi with regards to questioning the witness on the proceedings in Judge Maumela's court, Basically, Baloyi argues that the state is entitled to cross-examine the credibility, and Judge Rata then asked for the authorities for which Advocate Baloyi could not provide. Now, there was one issue that was a big problem with regards to the evidence that is before this court in connection to the bullets that were found on the scene, where Baloyi is saying Ngena and Mhlahlo found a bullet at the crime scene, and Advocate Mnisi then objects to this, saying that, well, we can't really depend on that evidence solely, because there are police officers that came to testify in this court that said they also searched the same areas that Mhlahlo and apparently Mangena searched, and they found nothing at the crime scene. So the evidence of 2 of the police officers and the evidence of the other 2 police officers, we still need to determine which ones were correct, because if the others say they searched and they found nothing, and the others the following day say they found something, there must be some issue with regards to these 2 testimonies. Now, with this point, Umncube, accused number 3, does call Mnisi and actually wants to put across what he heard in court, where he says that Mosia himself said that he came to the scene and he found nothing. And the judge disagrees. I mean, we all listened to the evidence of Mosia. Mosia came to the crime scene. The judge says he disagrees with that evidence. Mosia was never there on the night of the incident. And I'm just like, what evidence does the judge actually listen to? Because Mosia came to the crime scene and he said that he had to leave for another case, arson, that was happening at another place. So he came to the crime scene the night before, and then he left to attend another crime scene, and then he came back the day after. That is when now Mangena found this alleged bullets. Mosia had already been at the scene the night before. Ramosipili then confirms that actually accused number 3 is right. Mosia was definitely at the scene on the night of the incident and also returned the day after. Those were the proceedings on Monday, and on Tuesday we continued with the cross-examination of Baloyi still. Baloyi basically touches on the issue of the Westleton Tower in Mpumalanga, where accused number 1's phone was allegedly pinging during a certain period, and he says that this basically confirms Zungu's version that accused number 1 was in Mpumalanga during a certain period. Accused number 1 blatantly denies being in Mpumalanga during this period, and to be quite honest, with the cooking that has been done in this case, I do believe they took section 205s from Zungu's phone and they literally added them onto accused number 1's phone. But that's just me thinking out loud. Baloyi then went through the exercise of taking Umuzi through some photos that were on accused number 3's phone, just to confirm the people that were there. He says that the version of accused number 3 is that he was with Uma Bungunduli, who is accused number 1's uncle, as well as Uspi Vanduli, who is accused number 1's uncle as well. And he says, how is it possible that your uncles know accused number 3, but you are saying that you don't know accused number 3? Muzi's response to this is that, yeah, those are my uncles. The people that my uncle knows, I don't necessarily know all of them. Just like me, my uncles don't know everyone that I know. And he even makes an example to say, right now, I know you, state prosecutor, but it doesn't mean that I know the people that you know. Yet again, they touch on the issue of the polo that was used during the incident, and it is so surprising to me how the state actually leads this evidence, where they say Muzi Sbiya said that there was a white polo that was involved during the commission of the crime, and this incident happened on a Saturday. However, they say Constable Zungu says it was a silver polo, and the color of the car was actually silver, and Muzi was misleading them. But now, how can Muzi mislead you when you also have information about a white polo from Natus? So I think the issue of the polos, it was supposed to be a white polo, and then they changed misstatements because there's a white polo and there's a silver polo. Why would Muzi mislead you and say a white polo when there is a white polo, Ganetas? I don't know if you're getting where I'm going with this, but there's a white polo and a silver polo that is appearing on the Natus system. Muzi is saying that on the day of the incident we drove in a white polo. Why do you take Muzi's Zungu's statement as opposed to Muzi? Because both of the polos, a white and a silver one, appear when it is. The cooking. Muzi also does point out that there are certain things that are written in pen, and he's finding it difficult to actually answer questions in regards to those particular things, because why are they in pen when other things are typed out? Baloyi's response to this is that Muzi has a tendency of detracting from the question, and he would just like for him to answer the question. He even goes as far as saying he has consulted with Umumalo, and this version that they are putting to Muzi is correct. Muzi's response to this is that you consulted with Umumalo, not with me. So when things are written in pen, I have a right to question them. Now, there was also an issue that was the final issue Baloyi touched on with regards to the OB books from Valeria, where Mnisi had raised a concern where the OB books say that people in the cells were staying in groups of 3 or 2 per cell. And one of Mnisi's questions was that when they mentioned 3 or 2 per cell, was Muzi Sbiya also part of the 1 or 2, the 2 or 3 per cell? Because Muzi Sbiya has always maintained that he's always been alone in a single cell the whole time that he was at Valeria. When the state tried to explain this to the judge, it wasn't explaining it in the way in which it happened. So Mnisi then objected and actually put it the way that it was supposed to be put. And the judge said, no, but the state is supposed to clarify this. And Mnisi says, the reason why I'm standing to assist is because the state is not doing justice to the explanation and giving the proper context as to how this particular question came about. Baloyi, after 2 weeks of cross-examination, finally completed his cross-examination, and it was time for Advocate Mnisi to re-examine Umuzi. Now, one of the first things that he touched on is the issue of the AVL and how not having the AVL is basically ruining Muzi's chances of proving his version of events. Muzi basically says the fact that there's no AVLs and the police keep running away with AVLs, I feel like there is an injustice. Firstly, it was the pocketbooks, then it's the AVLs. It's clear that anything that will help the defense is not provided by the state, but everything that they need as the state is always readily available for them. Now, we have constantly complained about the interpretation in this court, and on Tuesday, things were no different. The interpreter was interpreting nonsense to the point where Mnisi had to literally ask his question in isiZulu because the interpreter was just not interpreting the right thing. One of the issues that Mnisi hammered on Tuesday was the issue of Uhadebe and how Uhadebe never mentioned during his testimony how he wrote the statement with Umuzi. And the state then says, no, during the trial within a trial, we were dealing with the admissibility and he wasn't going into the particular statement. But that's not what Mnisi was saying. What Mnisi was saying is that during the trial within a trial, he was asked to explain the process of taking the confession from Umuzi. And the process was explained, but this particular aspect of the process was never mentioned by Uhadebe. This is when Mnisi says he feels obliged to read all 5 pages of Hadebe's testimony because there is nowhere where he mentions this little oversight here. During that, the judge was the one arguing on behalf of the state, asking Mnisi, no, but the person that was taking photos was given instructions. So if no one gave him instructions to take a picture when Uhadebe was explaining the accused of number 1, then how could he have taken the photos? And Mnisi's like, that is an important aspect of this confession and the pointing out. So why wouldn't it be photographed? Because they were photographing the important moments of the pointing out. So why wasn't this photographed? The judge then says, you know what? You have the right to deny the so-called statement, but it's a 3-page document and I'm going to read it. And so he starts reading through Muzi Sbiya's confession and putting it onto the record. After he reads this, Mnisi says, I don't know what to make of what the court has just done. Like, I'm flabbergasted, basically. The court is giving an impression that it is taking this prima facie view, and he cannot even comprehend what the court has just done. Everything that Rata does in that court is irregular. Now, one aspect that Umuzi Sbiya touched on just before Mnisi finished his cross-examination with the drop of a mic is the issue of a date that was written on this particular pointing out statement, where he says the date is written as the 4th of May in 2020. However, the day in which the pointing out actually happened is the 5th of June. Muzi Sbiya then emphasizes that if Hadebe had read this particular statement to me, he would have realized that he wrote the wrong date and corrected it at that time. The fact that the date was wrong and he corrected it only when he came to court is proof that nothing was read back to me. And I was like, clock it. So those were the proceedings on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, Mnisi continues with his cross-examination and touches on the issue of Usimpiwe Buthelezi and how he says that he overheard an argument with Umuzi and his girlfriend, and he says that this alleged argument happened in Vosloorus. Now Musi Sibia says, I don't know where this person is getting this information from, because during that period, I was not staying in Vosloorus, I was staying in Tembisa. Now Mnisi touches on the issue where he says that Baloyi basically says that the arrest in 2019 didn't happen, for which Baloyi objects and says he didn't say that didn't happen, but he was referring to the Kluerkop meeting, that it did not happen. Now, the Kluerkop meeting is the day in which Muzi was arrested. So if you're saying that Muzi was not at that meeting, you're saying that he wasn't arrested. Nisi then touches on the issue of the Buthelezi brothers and how they came about in the issue of the Senzo Meyiwa case. And Muzi does say that even with his first arrest, he was questioned about his involvement in the Senzo Meyiwa case, and the names of the Buthelezi brothers was mentioned. Now, guys, I'm not one to lie about the information that I remember, but as far as I can remember, when Muzi testified about the issue of the Buthelezi brothers, he had originally said that that issue came about with Ukinind. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, but now on Wednesday, it was the first time me hearing him saying that it also came up in 2019. I could be wrong, but that is what I picked up about that. Also, Muzi has been through a lot, guys. He might even forget when the issue of the Buthelezi brothers came about, but that is one inconsistency that I picked up from him on Wednesday. Now, Wednesday was a day of bombshells, because just before Mnisi finished his cross-examination of Umuzi Sibia, he touches on the OB books. Now, one thing about lies, they will catch up with you. They will catch up with you. He goes into the OB entries of Alberton Police Station, and firstly he goes through the evidence of Hadebe, where he says at 1:30 he was making his way with the accused, and this was the kilometer reading, and this was the time. And then he goes into the OB book where he says, okay, now the OB book here says at 14:16 the police station, so the people at the cells of the police station are saying they received you 14:16. At 14:25 you're booked out of Alberton Police Station en route to Valeria. But Hadebe says at 14:30 he was still sitting with you. And then he says to Muzi, can you explain that? And Muzi basically says this is just to prove that Hadebe was writing this thing at his own time. The times don't correspond. I cannot be inside the police station at 14:16, leave the police station at 14:25, and still be with Hadebe taking a statement at 14:30. My gosh! Basically says this is just proof that this wasn't written whilst Hadebe was with me. He wrote it in his own time, and the proof is in the pudding. Basically, the proof is in the pudding. Mnisi then says, we're done. Like, I'm done. I'm over with this cross-examination and I'm ready to call my next witness. And in my mind, I was like, next witness, let it be Absalom Zungu. Now, when Mnisi is introducing the next witness just before the break, he says, the next witness is going to be Mr. X. Mr. X-ray. And I'm just like, Mr. X-ray, who the hell is that? Right? And then they go on a break. When they come back from the break, boom, Absalom Zungu enters the building. Guys, my excitement was on another level. I was like, defense, that is how you break it down. You don't fetch all these police officers from everywhere, people that have nothing to do with this case. You fetch the sauce. You fetch the sauce. And I was like, yes, please. Mnisi then introduces Absalom Zungu. It says, the day that you have been waiting for has finally arrived. Welcome to court. This is how things work in the court, and we're ready to get started. One thing about Absalom Zungu, he does not want to be led, my child. He wants to state his story from the get-go. When Mnisi asks, I realize that your surname is also Zungu. Are you of any relation to Constable Zungu who testified in this case? And he says, yes, that is my son. Basically, he has lived with his mother. He was raised by his mother, but he is my son. Introduces the Constable Zungu to us and how he, although he was raised by his mom, he did at some point require assistance from his dad. He told his dad that he was going to be a cop, and he therefore went to training. After training, he came back and said, hey, I'm finished my training. Now I need to go do a license. The father then paid for Zungu to go do his license. That was done, and he got a job in the SAPS. And that is how Ubab Absalom Zungu basically introduces us to Constable Zungu. Whilst he starts his testimony, Mnisi goes right to the question of, do you know or any of the accused that are here before court? Absalom, without hesitation, says yes. Accused number one, I know him, Usbiya. This is where I know him from, although but I know he's from back home. The second one, I know him, Undanzi. His place is like 10 minutes from my place, so I definitely know him. But the rest of the accused, I know nothing about them. I don't know them. And if they say they know me, well, they probably know me from Imakaya or maybe Ngonim Tsimbini, but I don't know them from a bar of soap. Now, Absalom takes us through how Uzungu basically introduced him to this whole Senzo Meyiwa case issue. And he says that he was working at Emelo during this period, and his son one night just decided to come over to his place. And he says that on that night he had not called to say that he was coming, and he was actually at work because he was working night shift during that time from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. And when Zungu had arrived, he basically had asked Umbegiseni Ndanzi, guys, the name rings a bell. He asked Umbegiseni to go to his house because Mbegiseni has access to Absalom Zungu's house. So he told Mbegiseni that my son is here, Emelo, and I need him to get access to my place. Please, can you meet up with him in town? Because apparently Mbegiseni had the keys to Bab Zungu, or knew where Bab Zungu put his keys to his place. So Bab Zungu then gives Zungu Mbegiseni's number and gives him Mbegiseni Zungu's number, and they meet up in town and then eventually go to Bab Zungu's house. Bab Zungu, when he knocks off at work, he then goes to meet with Uzungu at his place. When he meets with Uzungu at his place, Uzungu is busy talking about the Senzo Meyiwa case and how they're looking for people who killed Usenzo. Absalom Zungu, when detailing this, says, well, then I ask Uzungu, why are you looking for people that killed Usenzo in KZN when Senzo was killed in Joburg? And he says, no, he brushes the issue off. He says that night they slept. In the morning, he wakes up. Zungu is now questioning him about a specific photo. He says when he takes out this photo, it's a photo of a fine-looking gentleman dressed very well, and he basically says, "Hey, waqoka kahle bulu muntu yabo. Mese bheka isithombe usbiya." And then he says that he asks Zungu, why do you have his tombe sasbiya? Does he know that you have his photo? Is it allowed that you have his photo? Because next time things might happen and you have this photo and then you're in trouble for having this photo. Basically, Ubab Zungu gives me the sense that he knows this is illegal. Now, he says that when his son tells him about all of this, he says that he needs his assistance and he wants him to change his name to Kumalo, basically. So now Bab Zungu says, okay, I'm going to play along and see where this goes. And then he says that eventually he gets a call after Zungu had left. Obviously he gets a call and the person on the phone says mzilikazi kamashobane. How mzilikazi kamashobane? Ubab Absalom is like, nope, you've got the wrong number. This is not Umzilikazi kamashobane, this is Uzungu. The person over the phone says they are Kininda and this is the situation and this is the situation. And then during the detailing of this whole story, Ubab Zungu tells us that there was a time where Uzungu was questioning about a girlfriend, Gangan. And the father was like, me, I wouldn't know anything about these girlfriends and everything. I mean, these boys are young. I don't even know Gangani Doyo, so how would I know his girlfriend? He then details how then eventually one day Kininda and Zungu come to him in Emelo. They come to him, they put him in a van and there was another gentleman that was driving and another gentleman that was in the car, and apparently on the way somewhere they picked up another gentleman. So he says that they were telling him what they wanted him to say, and which is basically what is in the confession. And he says that, and then they wanted him to sign, but he didn't sign anything on that night. And apparently they then took him back and they dropped him somewhere on the streets, and he had to walk back home. Now, after the break on Wednesday, Umnisi then puts up an issue of Ubab Zungu having notes, and he says that, I realize that you have notes there, so what is happening with those notes? He basically says these are just to refresh my memory on things that have been happening, because I usually write down things as they happen. Now, there was an argument in court with regards to a witness and having notes, and basically what Ubaloyi says is that a witness can only refer to a statement that they made, and Ubab Zungu has a statement which is exhibit UU. Now Baloyi wants Ubab Zungu to use a statement that he's already denying that he made. So how do you go about that situation? So eventually Umnisi was like, you know what, Ubab Zungu, please can you put away those notes, but if you want to refer to them, you will tell the court and then we will allow you to refer to them. Ubab Zungu was very upset that Ubab Zungu was upset at the fact that now they're not allowing him to look into his notes. And the state even went as far as saying, I mean, with Gininda's diary, we gave the defense the diary to be able to check the notes. And the state was basically asking that the defense give Ubab Zungu's notes to them as well so that they can read through them. Nisi says, no, we don't have a problem. We can give you the notes. Ubab Zungu says, not on my watch. I'm not giving you my notes. They can just sit here on the side. It's fine. But if there are facts that I forget, then please don't blame me. Ramosipila's argument in this is that a witness can refer to their notes to refresh their memory and not to read paragraph by paragraph, which is not what Ubab Zungu was doing. He was just refreshing his memory with some of the notes. Ubab Zungu does say that these notes were written by him. The defense hasn't had sight of these notes. No one has had sight of these notes. So he really didn't understand why they didn't want him to have his notes. And he even said more than 2 times on the day that he's a bit disturbed at what the state is trying to do here because they don't want him to use his notes. And you could tell that he's genuinely frustrated. Ubab Zungu basically emphasizes the issue that he did not sign anything, and the reason he did not sign is because babese mahlathini. He can't sign things angazazi emahlathini. He even asked why they don't go to a police station to sign these particular documents. Now, when Umnisi tries to question the issue of signing, he says, so you signed nothing? And he says, no, I didn't sign anything. For me, if you want to see my signature, literally I have my ID. You can go to SASA, you can go wherever, you can go to Home Affairs, and they have my signature, but I didn't sign anything on that day. Then he goes through the issue of Ukininda and Uzungu. And he asked, did Zungu tell you that he's working with Gininda? And he says, yes, he did tell me that he's working with Gininda. But the most important thing about this is that Zungu told his father that he's intelligence. Intelligence, Zungu. Then Umnisi starts going into the statement to exhibit UU, where it says that the witness gave the statement in English. So Absalom Zungu is asked, did you ever give a statement in English? No. And then just going through the first information on this particular statement, already it's so suspicious because the address that Babu Zungu has put on this particular particular statement that he made is saying that he's staying at 25 Setohe section in Tembisa. Ubab Zungu akazahlala eThembisa, guys, and he even says, particularly during this time that they say that I made the statement. On the statement, it mentions something about being unemployed and working at Piet Retief. And he says, I've never worked at Piet Retief. I don't know what they're talking about. In the statement, it talks about Umbexeni and how he was told by Umbexeni about the involvement of Umuzi Nondanzi, and he says no, the only way that Umbexeni got involved in this whole thing is when Uzungu came to Emelo and I asked Umbexeni to go pick him in town. That's how Umbexeni came involved in this whole issue. Otherwise, Umbexeni ayikindanga ngitshela yona about Senzo Meyiwa's death, akekho ngitshela yona about Muzi and Danzi's involvement. There's no such thing. Now, what I loved about this moment statements. It's when Umnisi says, Mbekiseni told you something shocking. That's what the statement says. And Ubaba Zungu's like, ngichokwe yini umbekiseni akazangitshela into engichokayo angazobhala umbhedo la ukininda. And then just on the final moments of the day, when they were still speaking about Ukininda and the confession and the statement that Ubaba Zungu made, he then says, Ukininda, according to the statement, Ubaba Zungu was taken to Pretoria at the Maba Bonange building. And Ubaba Zungu was like, ingekho any police station baze bangiso kulelo bhilidi. Why babengangise police station? Asenje should babenza umathanda nje lapho. Angizange nje ngize ngiye police station. Mawukuthi bona abantu babengibhalisa statement kwafanele ngisenze police station leso statement. He completes the proceedings for the day on Thursday, and Ubaba Zungu, when they're telling him that it's the end of the day at 3:30 we need to close because the accused need to go back to prisons, and Ubaba Zungu says, ninginike phela ithuba lokuthi ngikhulume ngale statement. And Umnisi is like, don't worry, Baba, we're okay. Bona Ubaba Zungu is here to talk. He's not here to play. One thing about abantu abakhulile, they have no filter. Now, guys, on Thursday, the 13th of November, we came to court and there was an issue with accused number 5. After the long breaks in between, we did find out that accused number 5 was refusing to come to court. Now, the reason for his refusal, as put by Umumalo, as Umshololo is not in, is said to be that yesterday or the day prior, he had requested to make a phone call to his legal counsel. That is after Babu Zungu's appearance in court on Wednesday. The application or the request that he had made was approved by Mr. Leta. However, it was said that he would call in the afternoon. When he got back in the afternoon and requested the phone call that was approved by Mr. Leta, a certain prison warden was not allowing him to make the phone call. So they didn't allow him to make the phone call, and obviously because of that he was upset on Thursday morning and refused to come to court. Now he says that he was literally assaulted, strangled, kicked and all sorts on Thursday morning, and they literally dragged him out of his prison cell to come to court. Ongangokuthi, he came in prison clothes. He was wearing the red overalls and he was in court looking livid as hell. He could kill a person with just his looks on Thursday. He was so angry. And my surprising thing is that the judge didn't even flinch. The judge didn't even flinch. This person is making accusations that people have assaulted him in prison. He's in court in his prison uniform. And you literally don't flinch. So he asked, who were the people that assaulted him? Are they here? And he basically says, yes, the person that refused his phone call yesterday is here along with 2 other people. So 3 of the people that assaulted him are present before this court, but the other 2 are not. And Judge Rasa doesn't even bother to ask them to come forward, to come and explain what happened. Nothing. And basically, Ngumalo asked the judge to make a court order to say that accused must be taken to a doctor, and he refuses for the proceedings to continue because he's not in the right state of mind. The state does then say that they want the proceedings to continue without accused number 5, and I'm like, Njani, and they start quoting a section 159 in brackets 2. Ngumalo mentions that is talking about something completely different to what we're dealing with here. And eventually the judge says the only reason why he is agreeing to the proceedings being postponed to Friday is because accused number 5 is dressed in prison clothes, and there is a court ruling that says the accused should appear in civilian clothes, so there isn't a certain narrative that is put by the judge when they appear in their prison clothes. So for that reason, he is allowing the postponement of the case until tomorrow. He did also make a court order to say that accused number 5 must be taken to a doctor. Now, guys, there's something that is happening in this court which is very consistent, and it keeps reoccurring. Every time the state has a knock on its case, the accused are suffering in Kgosi Mampuru. And it's Kgosi Mampuru only. So there must be some issues with Kgosi Mampuru prison. And if you guys remember, accused number 5 had requested to be moved from Kgosi Mampuru, and the judge made a ruling or an order that he must be moved from there and moved to Lurkop, where accused number 4 says he's not suffering any intimidation there, and so accused number 5 could go there because they do have a maximum facility there. The guy is still not moved, and he's still experiencing the very same thing this month, today. No, guys, something must be done about Kgosi Mampuru prison, because what the hell? At first, it was accused number 3 who was been in isolation forevermore, and now accused number 5 is being assaulted. No, come on, Kgosi Mampuru, you need to do better. Now, today being Friday, the 14th of November, we continued with the proceedings in court, and the first thing that they needed to address is the issue of accused number 5 and how the order that was granted by the court was not adhered to. Guys, what is happening at Kgosi Mampuru? So Nxumalo then asked for the order by the court to be made in writing so that they take accused number 5 to the doctor. He says he didn't go to a doctor, but he's willing to sit down and listen to the proceedings for the day. He'll go to the doctor after, as long as the judge gives that order in writing. So Judge Rata said it's fine. He will be putting that order in writing. Now, one of the things that Nxumalo mentions in this little talk in the morning is that accused number 5 says that he has visible injuries. So if accused number 5 has visible injuries, the allegations of assault with these police officers, very valid, and he even says that he can even show the court. Now the judge refuses to see the injuries on accused number 5, saying he's dealing with the case where already the police officers are said to have assaulted the accused. He doesn't want to see the injuries so that it doesn't blur his judgment, kind of thing. So he refused to see the injuries on accused number 5. Then we continued with the evidence of Absalom Zungu. Now, what I loved about one of the first few things that Umnisi mentions with regards to the statement here, Absalom Zungu exhibit UU, is how he says that he knows accused number 1 and he knows accused number 2. In the statement that he allegedly made, it said that Babu Zungu said he knows Umuzi from Kwanongoma and he knows Undanzi works in the mines. And Babu Zungu's response to this is that I wouldn't know where Undanzi works. I don't even know where he works. But I don't know where he works, so I couldn't have said that. And 2, I couldn't have said Umuzi Mazela Kwanongoma because Umuzi Mazela Mahlabathini. Now guys, this just proves or corroborates the version of accused number 1 to say he's not from Kwanongoma where Zungu said he's from. He's from Mahlabathini, and Absalom Zungu confirms this as well. Then Umnisi talks about a photo that is mentioned in the statement where Absalom Zungu allegedly said that he provided a photo with the statement. And then Babu Zungu says, no, I didn't attach any photo to any statement because I never made a statement one. And the only photo I can refer to is a photo that was shown to me by my son, Uzungu, when he came to ML. I never brought in a picture that backed up my statement. I just was shown a photo. The only photo that I can talk about is the photo that I was shown by Uzungu on my phone, and that photo did depict accused number 1. And Umnisi brings up something very important about this particular photo, because in the statement it says the photo is attached to the statement. But when the state gave the defense the statement, it had no photo. Why? Umnisi asks if the statement was read back to Babu Zungu. He says nothing was read back to him. And then he touches on the issue of the signing, where he says that he did not sign anything with Abu Kinind. What I like about Umnisi also, guys, is that he keeps exposing the state, because he says when the state provided this document, the signature was cut off. So the state gave the defense a signature of Uzungu. That's not the signature of Zungu, but it was cut off. So they then requested the full signature, or the full page with the full signature. The signature was provided and it was asked to be beamed on the screen. So now Umnisi requested that the signature or the ID document of Absalom Zungu be on one side and the statement by Ukininda with the particular signature be on the other. He then does an amazing exercise where he says, Babu Zungu, the signature on the left, do you know that signature? Baba Zungu says, no. The signature on the right, do you know that signature? Yes, that's my signature. And he says, oh, okay. Then we go into the issue of TikTok. Njabulo, if you watch this, big ups to you, Budwami. Big ups to you and the job that you have done in this case. We appreciate your work so much. So now, guys, those of you who don't know, there was an interview that was done with Absalom Zungu in KZN. Some of the people that were involved include Unjabs from Gaza Nation, shout out. And they basically interviewed Absalom Zungu, where he does like basically speak about this whole process that has been happening in court and everything and how he got involved. Now Baba Zungu talks about he was called by Abanbaga TikTok, or he found Abanbaga TikTok and they wanted to do an interview with him. And after they did that interview, they took him to the police station to say, everything that we did with you here is legit. The reason why we're taking you to the police station is to confirm that we haven't done anything wrong with you. This is what we've done, and you confirm that this is what we have done. Now, the good thing about this particular thing, but they took Ubaba Zungu to the police station where he confirms, I met with Abanbaga TikTok. Ubaba Zungu, I don't even think he understands what a TikTok is, but he says, I met with Abanbaga TikTok and I spoke to them about this, this, and this. Nothing was done to me. I'm not harmed. I'm fine. And he writes a statement and he signs it. Now Umnisi takes that very same statement and says, I want to bring this up and submit it as an exhibit. And then he puts the signature from the statement that was done in KZN and says, this is the signature on this particular statement. This is the signature of Ubaba Zungu on his ID. Does the signature match? Yes. Does the signature match? Yes. Does it match with the one that Kininda says you signed? No. Guys, Omnisi touches on the issue where he says Zungu, when he came to testify, told this court that the reason why you came into the picture is just to confirm that he grew up Kwanongoma. And Zungu's like, Uzungu constable didn't grow up Kwanongoma. He grew up in Gala. So I wouldn't be confirming that he grew up Kwanongoma. He never grew up Kwanongoma. And if he had grown up Kwanongoma, he would have grown up Nabo Musi, because he's about the same age as Omus. He never grew up there. Whilst Umnisi is confirming the signatures with Ubaba Zungu, he had a conversation with Ramusipili on the side, and Ubaba Zungu was trying to answer, and Umnisi then apologizes to say, hey, I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention, I was speaking to Ramusipili. And the judge basically says, you should be apologizing to the court. And I'm like, why are we so dramatic? And he says you should be apologizing to the court. And then he talks about ethics and he talks about this. Now, this is very important because I think I forgot to mention that the previous day he had asked Baloyi about being taught ethics. And a lot of people assumed that he was directing this to Ubaloyi. It wasn't directed to Ubaloyi. He was throwing jabs at the defense. And I was so disappointed with Judge Rans. He was so angry. And then he says that this is the behavior towards a black judge. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with being black. Nisi did an honest mistake. It was an honest mistake to have a conversation with Ura Msipili on the side whilst the witness was trying to answer. It was an honest mistake. He has apologized. Stop making such a big deal out of it, Judge Rata. Now, as Absalom Zungu is explaining the issue of the signature, Nisi then asks him, so seeing that these signatures are not the same as the one that Ukininda says you signed, what does that tell you? And Absalom Zungu basically says, what it says to me is that what Okininda were doing was ukebengu. What they were doing is ukebengu because I'm clearly saying that this is not my signature. I'm clearly saying that this is what this is. And then Umnisi touches on the issue of the actual signature and how it is so different. So according to how Baba Zungu is explaining, now remember guys, we don't have sight of the screen we don't have sight of the screen in court. But according to how he's explaining, this is what I made of the signature situation. On Kininda's statement, where there's supposed to be a signature, kubhaliwe Absalom as a signature. And where Absalom actually signs, he has a proper scribbling signature. So he basically says, no, in this one, this is a signature because it's scribbled. It's like scribbling signature. And here it's just written. It's just Absalom. So I don't sign like that. And he says, and if anyone disagrees with what I'm saying right now, we can go to FNB. We can go to SASA. We can go to Home Affairs and see all the documentation that I've signed in those institutions and match them with the signature that Ukininda is bringing. It will not match. However, it will match with the one on my ID. It will match on the one with the statement from KZN, and it will match with anything that I sign even here in court. I'm like, oh, lo baba. So when they ask Absalom if he has anything to add, he basically says he has nothing to add, but he would love to know whose signature is on that statement that they say is his. Whose signature is that? And the interpreter didn't interpret that, and Mnisi says it's ngekabani le signature. He would love to know who does that signature belong to. Now Mnisi, as he's about to wrap up, he says that the statement gives an impression that you knew or you were told by Umbekseni about knowing certain information about the Senzo Meyiwa case. And Baloyi objects to this and he says, well, they have already indicated that it's triple hearsay, and that's the reason why they were not going to call Absalom Zungu, is because his evidence is triple hearsay. And then Umnisi says, but it's funny that you're saying it's triple hearsay. Kinida testified on it and nothing was said. The state says, we've always maintained that it was triple hearsay. We can take you to the proceedings of this date and this date and this date. This is where we said this. Now, guys, hold up, wait. We've been saying it's triple hearsay all along. But the funny thing is, the accused were arrested on this triple hearsay, because I remember so clearly Kininda saying they had no sight of these people before Absalom's statement. Oh my God, they had no sight of the two accused before Absalom's statement. So Absalom's statement brought in accused 1 and 2. Then accused number 1 and 2's confessions brought in 3, 4, and 5. Or well, actually, the confessions of accused number 2, because Ega number 1, Ifaguma Konoma Kimbi. So if we're dealing with triple hearsay evidence, why are we here? Why are we in court for the past 4 years or 3 years dealing with this case on triple C evidence? Because that's how it was cooked. It was on triple C. And when we said, oh, Zungu's their main witness, they said, no, Zungu's not our main witness. Our main witness is Absalom. Triple hearsay, what do we make of that now? What do we make of that now? Anyway, guys, those were the proceedings for the week. Umnisi has indicated that he is done with the examination of the witness. But now what is... Ubaba Zungu, guys, wants to talk. And he says, no, but mina, I've got some grievances, Lan. I would love to know. And he asks a very valid question. He says, I would like to know, my name has been screamed out in this court, all over this court. My name is all over this court, and I'm said to be the main witness, but I'm not called to come testify. Why haven't I been called to testify if I made this statement? Because I'm the reason that the accused are here. Basically, that's what he's saying. I'm the reason the accused are here, but when the court starts, you don't call me to court. Like, why? Why court? And the question is valid. Nileta i-statement Absalom Zungu nimleti nithi triple here, kodwa nithi triple here say kodwa all accused are sitting in court because of that very statement. Those who believe in the state's case still, I'm worried about you. Those are the proceedings for the week, guys. I hope that you enjoyed them. It's been a very, very exciting week for the defense. I cannot wait for the cross-examination. That is if they are going to cross-examine Absalom Zungu, because it's going to be a mission. It is going to be a mission. Also, I cannot wait to see who the next witness would be. I would love to see Gwabini come to court. I would love to see the defense calling all these people that made this court case, basically. Because if they bring Gwabini, it's so over for Zungu. It is so over for Zungu. Anyway, yeah, guys, I hope that you enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next week.